A necessary reversion. The changes in vaccine policy should help improve India's response to the pandemic. The center has announced a much-needed course correction in India's vaccination policy, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi taking the podium to announce that the month-old decision to leave states to procure vaccines on their own for their 18 to 44 population would be ending in 2 weeks. States were allowed to procure 25% of the vaccines manufactured and the center 50%, a policy that the Supreme Court termed irrational and arbitrary. The court's comments have had a salutary effect. From June 21, the center will be procuring 75%, and states will no longer have to pay vaccine companies for the same. Vaccines will continue to be free for all those who choose to get their shot at government centers. The 25% vaccines that were allotted to private hospitals will continue to, though the service charges that they charge will be capped at 150 rupees. This ceiling price on vaccines in hospitals will bring predictability and be hugely beneficial to citizens. The center, which controlled all supply of vaccines and had negotiated prices and orders with Bharat Biotech and the Serum Institute, saw itself desperately short of supply right in the middle of India's deadly second wave. The hospital emergencies worsened the center's panic, and so it chose a path that no country had undertaken of devolving the responsibility of buying vaccines to states. Health has traditionally been within the purview of states, and it stands to reason that they would invariably have to deal with the challenges that vaccination throws up. This includes vaccine hesitancy, the problem of transportation, the availability of trained personnel, and the existing capacity at healthcare sites. Faced with the intensity of the second wave, states demanded more vaccines and autonomy in deciding how to administer them. What resulted were frequent public spats, with the center blaming states for inefficiently using available stocks and yet demanding more. Though there are substantial numbers of senior citizens yet to be vaccinated, particularly with the second dose, it is clear that the foreseeable demand will be in the sub-45 category. The government appears more confident of getting a steady stream of supply from Bharat Biotech and the Serum Institute, and in a bold move has ordered the 30 crore doses of an untested vaccine from the Hyderabad-based Biological Inc. Assuming that a third wave is not in the vicinity, these changes in total could be the beginning of a smoother, more efficient vaccine rollout. Mr. Modi's announcement was preceded by a truculent defense of himself and his government and passing on blame to a variety of actors, including governments before 2014, for India's very real shortcomings on vaccination. However, the path to positive change is often meandering, and surviving the pandemic and being wiser from mistakes must be the spirit in which these policy changes are adapted. This time for me, Maldives and India have an opportunity to work for changing power structures at the UN. The election of Maldives Foreign Minister Abdullah Sahid as the President of the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly, that begins in September for 2021 to 22, is a major boost for the island nation's international profile. The election marks the first time a Maldivian will hold the post in the UN's history, and his margin of victory 143 to his challenger's 48, indicating support from nearly three-fourths of all countries at the UN is significant. Maldives also sees it as a win for the 52-member small island developing states, which are battling climate change vulnerability and other developmental challenges. In addition, in a year when events in Afghanistan will draw attention as US forces begin to pull out, Mr. Sahid's victory over his surprise opponent, former Afghanistan Foreign Minister Zalmay Rasool, is remarkable. For India too, that helped Maldives canvass support, the outcome is welcome, not only because of its close ties with Mir, but also the high regard for Mr. Sahib, a key member of the solid government. In a break from the norm of not announcing one's choice for an election by secret ballot, Foreign Secretary Harsh Sringla had announced India's support for the Maldives in November 2020, South Bloc's explanation being that Afghanistan had not yet announced Mr. Rasool's candidature, which it did in January 2021. New Delhi should now ensure that the Afghan government carries no hard feelings, as some in Kabul had even hinted that India might wish to support Afghanistan as it had sacrificed its turn at the UNSC for India's current term there. It would also be important to analyze why Kabul decided to field a candidature late in the race and not withdraw despite it being clear that its South Asian neighbor was ahead and did not consult India closely on the process. The focus now shifts to his tenure and South Asian ensures issues such as the impact of the coronavirus pandemic and equitable access to vaccines. Cooperation is close and Mr. Sahib is in discussions to appoint an Indian diplomat as his chief aide. Given that the previous president of the General Assembly from Turkey had ruffled feathers with his remarks in Islamabad that Pakistan was duty bound to raise the Jammu and Kashmir dispute more strongly at the UN. Mr. Sahid's tenure is expected to see a far smoother term for India, especially as the Modi government focuses on showcasing the country at the UN during India's 75th independence anniversary next year. Above all, it is hoped that India in the UNSC and the Maldivian President of the General Assembly will work in tandem as New Delhi pursues its goals for multilateral reform and re-energize the dormant process of effecting change in the old power structures in the global body.